Hi kids, and welcome to Disney Animation Reviews. I'm Josiah Melky, and now we're in the 1980s of Disney feature animation. And today we're talking about Disney's 24th feature-length animated classic, The Fox and the Hound. It was 4 years after The Rescuers when The Fox and the Hound came out. That's the longest gap between any two animated Disney features. But there was plenty of stuff that the Disney studio did before Fox and the Hound. After Rescuers, later in 1977, they had the live-action film Pete's Dragon. Mostly live-action, with the titular dragon being the key animated character. It did pretty good at the box office, but got mixed reviews, but also received Oscar nominations for its music. 2 years after The Rescuers, in the summer of 1979, Jim Henson's characters, after 3 successful seasons of The Muppet Show, finally hit the big screen with their first ever feature film, The Muppet Movie. It was one of the top 10 highest grossing hits of 1979, got really good reviews, and was honored with 2 Oscar nominations for Best Score and Best Original Song for Rainbow Connection. 2 years later, after The Muppet Show had its last 2 seasons, the Muppets had their second feature film, The Great Muppet Caper, in the summer of 1981. Although not nearly as successful as The Muppet Movie, The Great Muppet Caper still took in quite a bit of cash and received an Academy Award nomination for Best Original Song for The First Time It Happens. But that's not important now. The Fox and the Hound is Disney's 24th animated feature-length film classic, based off the novel by Daniel P. Mannix, which was read by director Wolfgang Reitherman in spring of 1977, right around the time Rescuers was wrapping up production, and Reitherman thought that would make a great animated feature for what they could do next. Reitherman apparently was taken in by the story because one of his boys had had a fox cub when he was a kid. Fox and the Hound got off. It had some production struggles, particularly because they were bringing in new animators to take the old animators' places someday. And there were debates on what to use and what not to use in the film. But ultimately, it all worked out, and The Fox and the Hound first opened in theaters in the summer of 1981. To be precise, a mere 2 weeks, so about a half a month after The Great Muppet Caper hit theaters. Fox and the Hound was not nearly as successful as The Rescuers, but still did decently well at the box office, and got fairly good reviews. I watched Fox and the Hound a bit as a kid, and I remember it wasn't one of my favorites. It's got some good moments, but it feels like it's too kid-like in the first half of the movie, and then takes on an adult tone in the second half. But I'll explain as I tell the story. So here's the story of The Fox and the Hound. Right at the start of the film, we have problems because baby Fox's mom is killed by hunters, and so Big Mama, the owl, decides he needs someone to take care of him. She and her friends, Dinky the Sparrow and Boomer the Woodpecker, arrange for the fox to be adopted by the loving Widow Tweed, who lives a couple blocks from the fence post where they find the fox. Thanks to the birds, Widow Tweed finds the fox and takes him in and names him Todd. Across the street, up the road a couple ways, we meet a hunter named Amos Slade and his hunting dog, Chief. Amos brings home a new hound dog for Chief to look after that he names Copper. It isn't long before Todd and Copper meet and become the best of friends, despite the fact that they are supposed to be enemies. Todd and Copper, to me, aren't the best Disney protagonists ever, but in a way, it's kind of like Bambi because it's a wilderness setting, and Lady and the Tramp because it's 2 people, or 2 animals who are different from each other, but become the best of friends. In fact, some home video releases of the film have even stated Fox and the Hound is in the tradition of classic Disney films Bambi and Lady and the Tramp. Todd and Copper spend their days hanging out together, but before long, Todd gets into trouble with Amos and Chief, with Amos threatening to kill Todd if he trespasses on his property. Winter comes, and Amos and Chief take Copper on their hunting trip until spring, and when spring comes, Todd and Copper are all grown up, and although they're happy to see each other again when Copper comes home, Copper warns Todd they can't be friends anymore because Copper's a trained hunting dog now. Todd runs into trouble with Amos and Chief and nearly gets Chief killed. Don't worry, he just injures his leg, like Trusty and Lady and the Tramp. But Amos swears revenge on Todd, and so Widow Tweed has to take Todd to the forest where he'll be safe. This is where Big Mama introduces him to a girl fox named Vixie, and the two of them, Todd and Vixie, end up falling in love with each other. Vixie's probably not the strongest love interest. She's basically Maid Marian from the Disney version of Robin Hood as an actual fox, but, you know. So the rest of the story revolves around Todd and Vixie trying to get along in the forest, and Copper and Amos trying to catch Todd to get their revenge on him for nearly killing Chief. You'll have to watch the rest of the movie to find out if Todd and Copper are able to keep their friendship or not. So, let's start with the good stuff on Fox and the Hound. Really, the only good thing about this movie that I remember is the voice cast. Let's see, you've got celebrities, including Kurt Russell as Copper. Kurt's been in a number of live-action Disney films, and he handles Copper pretty good. You've got Pearl Bailey as Big Mama, the owl, and she does a good job. I love her singing voice. And Sandy Duncan is the voice of Vixie. The voice of Slade, Amos Slade, is Jack Albertson, probably best known for playing Grandpa Joe in the original 1971 Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. The Fox and the Hound was actually one of Albertson's last films. He died later in 1981 after the film was released. In addition, you've got your some stock Disney cast members, including Mickey Rooney as adult Todd. Rooney had just come off of Pete's Dragon. Paul Winchell, the voice of Tigger, and Winnie the Pooh is the voice of Boomer the Woodpecker. And the voice of Chief is Pat Buttram, who's also done a couple Disney voiceover roles over the years. He had just come off of Rescuers. So the voice cast is pretty good. The characters probably aren't the best. In fact, they're probably the worst animated Disney feature characters I've seen since Robin Hood. The whole film is basically a copy of Bambi with some Lady and the Tramp tossed in, but it feels more like a nature message movie with a message about friendship instead of trying to be an actual story like Lady and the Tramp was. The animation isn't all that great, but one thing that Fox and the Hound did do well is this was the last animated Disney feature film that Wolfgang Reitherman worked on as a producer. He was going to direct the film, but he ended up getting replaced by newcomers. But it was the last animated Disney feature film that he worked on, and that Disney animators Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston worked on. But one thing Fox and the Hound did right is it started bringing in some newbies to take the old animators' places, and Frank and Ollie started training them. Among the people that came on board to Disney with this film were John Lasseter and Brad Bird of Pixar Animation Studios, John Musker and Ron Clements, who directed films like Aladdin and The Little Mermaid, Disney animator Glenn Keane, Tim Burton and Henry Selick, who went on to co-produce and direct The Nightmare Before Christmas and James and the Giant Peach, Disney story artist and animator Chris Buck, who went on to co-direct Disney's Tarzan and Frozen, and Mark Dindal, a visual effects artist who eventually directed The Emperor's New Groove and Chicken Little. So the animation isn't the best, but this is where a lot of today's key Disney animators and artists started coming on board. Something else that Fox and the Hound suffers from is the music. Like The Rescuers, Fox and the Hound really doesn't have that many notable songs. Probably the only notable one is The Best of Friends, which is the song that Big Mama sings when Todd and Copper first meet. It is a pretty song. Like I said, Pearl Bailey's got a great singing voice, but the rest of the songs are pretty forgettable. You'll probably forget about them the minute they're over. So, Fox and the Hound, it's not the worst animated Disney feature film ever, but it does have problems, because the first half is too kid-like, with Todd and Copper becoming friends, and then the second half becomes too adult when Todd and Copper grow up and have to be enemies. So, maybe this one suits teens and adults better for the second half, and little kids for the first half. But if you watch it with your kids, it's a good idea to talk to them about friendships and other struggles that these characters have. So that's my thoughts on The Fox and the Hound. It was followed for Christmas 2006 by a direct-to-DVD mid-quel, The Fox and the Hound 2. This one focuses on Todd and Copper's friendship as kids before they grew up and became enemies. They sneak off to a county fair where Copper joins a howling dog band, the Singing Strays, which puts a strain on his and Todd's friendship, and Todd hatches a scheme for them to become friends again. Fox and the Hound 2, I only saw it twice on DVD when it first came out in 2006, so you can probably guess it's not the best direct-to-DVD sequel ever. In fact, it's probably more like one of the worst. Although some of the music is pretty good, especially from the Singing Strays, and in addition to featuring Disney's stock voice cast like Jim Cummings and Russi Taylor, they do have some other celebrities. Notably, Dixie and Cash, the leaders of the dog band, are voiced by Reba McEntire and the late Patrick Swayze. So, if you have little kids who didn't like the first film, they'll probably sit through the sequel because it's more kid-friendly. Otherwise, skip it. Fox and the Hound's latest home video release was its 30th anniversary edition Blu-ray release in a 2-movie collection with the Fox and the Hound 2 in summer of 2011. The only new bonus feature that's on the Blu-ray is a feature called Unlikely Friends, featuring a bunch of animals that wouldn't normally get along, hanging out together. The only bonus features on the DVDs, because the Blu-ray is also a combo pack that includes DVD copies of the movies, the only bonus features they carry over on the DVDs are the first film has a sing-along of the Best of Friends song carried from the Aladdin sing-along tape, and a feature called Passing the Baton, where Disney animators talk about, the old animators, Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston, talk about passing the baton, hence the title, passing their legacy on to the newer Disney animators, and we also hear about the new Disney animators that got their start on Fox and the Hound, namely John Musker and Ron Clements, and some of the animators from their films. And the only bonus features carried over from the Fox and the Hound 2 DVD are a music video for You Know I Will, performed by High School Musical star Lucas Grabeel, and a behind-the-scenes look at the making of the music for the film. That means bonus features we lose from the 2006 DVD releases of the films include games and classic animated Disney shorts. So maybe Fox and the Hound is a bit of a mixed bag like the reviews and box office reception give it. Little kids will like it for the characters when they're friends at the beginning, Todd and Copper are friends, but then adults might have to explain to them about the struggles animals have in the wild when it gets to the second half with Todd and Copper as adults. So Fox and the Hound's kind of back and forth as far as Disney feature animation goes. Maybe check it out once or twice every couple years or so, but otherwise, I think there's plenty more other animated Disney features you could choose to watch with your kids instead. Well, we're out of time for today. Remember, when you wish upon a star, your dreams come true. See you soon!